Hello everyone, and welcome to another Custom Figure Showcase, but the last episode in Custom Figure Showcase 5 Rounds Rapid, because today we are going to be doing a retrospective review of all of the custom figures as part of this series. Now we're going to look at three things here. We're going to look at, well, I'm going to tell you which of mine was my favourite one to make, which of these I think is going to be, or has seemed to have been the most popular, and lastly, which of these variants I think we would be more likely to see in future. So firstly, which of these I actually enjoyed making the most? Well, I enjoyed making all of them, but I think the one that really sort of stands out to me the most out of all of these would have to be the Battlefield Brigadier. I found that the most fun to make because the thing is, with the other versions of the Brigadier, they're all very well, with the exception of the Sarah Jane Adventures one. No, actually, you know what? Actually, I'm always inclined to include the Sarah Jane Adventures one because there is something about these that is all very similar, and I think what it is it's the tunic style that it's got. Obviously, all of them, apart from this one, have got like a sort of tie. This is a very informal Brigadier, and I think it's, for me at least, I think the first time I actually saw the Brigadier was in Battlefield. That was the first Brigadier episode I saw. So for me, it's always sort of, that's the way I really remember him. And it certainly is a figure that is one that that is fun to make because it is different to the others for that reason. There's a lot of small differences and subtle differences in its makeup, and it is a slightly different Brigadier. You know, he's slightly older. The costume is slightly different. It does feel like it was one that was. It wasn't the most challenging of them all, but it was the one that I feel presented it was the most fun to make. They're all fun to make, but I think that one for me was definitely the most fun to make. Which brings me on to which of these seem to be the most popular, and I actually have to say, unsurprisingly, the one that appears to have been the most popular, I think is going to be the most popular in future, is certainly going to be the Spearhead from Space Brigadier. And the reason for that is because, obviously, we've had an official release, but the official release hasn't been that well received. It's quite inaccurate. The paint application on it isn't very good and things like that, and so I get the feeling that is one that people are going to customize more in future, and just from the video having been up already, it is definitely one that seems to have been the most popular video. So I get the feeling that of all of these, the one that I think people are going to be most drawn to is going to be the Spearhead one, because we have had a release that people are going to want to correct. But for that reason, you know, I quite like that, because it's nice that, for me, as somebody who's made the custom version, first of all, it's nice that, again, not to blow my own trumpet, it's nice that I've managed to make something that's better than an official figure. But also, it's the fact as well that I've made something that is going to be popular with other people, because it's going to show them how they can make their official version better. You know, and for me, it's good for that reason, because it means obviously means people are going to come to my channel, but it's the fact that it means I know that I'm going to help people out with this. That's what means the most to me, is that what I've done is going to be helpful to others. And also, going back to the first version, the first point, is the fact as well that this could be one of those videos that maybe this is where character options might... this is never going to happen, I appreciate that. But this is one of those videos where character options might see it and they're going to think, actually, you know what, that's a fan who has made something better than we've made officially. Never going to happen. I don't know why I'm thinking that might happen, but you never know. But the point is, okay, that's never going to happen, but the point still stands that it's a good... it's a good piece of evidence, I suppose, to show that the toy makers are being outdone by the fans now. So I think that is certainly one that it's going to be the most popular, I think, for several reasons. I know a lot of people were very happy to see the Sarah Jane Adventures Brigadier, but I know that the Spearhead from Space Brigadier is definitely going to be the one that's going to strike a chord, I think, with most fans. Which now leads me on to the last point, which is, which of these are we most likely to see in future? Now, in hindsight, I would have said if we hadn't had it as an official figure, the Spearhead from Space One would have definitely got my vote here, but obviously we've had that. But I think in terms of what we would see potentially in future, I think the hatless version is most likely to be the one that we would see, because when you look at all the other ones, so for example, we take out the Spearhead from Space One because we've already had that. They could release an updated, more accurate version, but I think the chances of that happening are extremely unlikely. So the Web of Fear one has had a lot done to it. It's had a lot of changes made to it, and so for that reason, I think that's out. The same with this version is we could see. Well, actually, let's go over which are the least likely to most likely. So the least likely are definitely the Sarah Jane Adventures one, because the Sarah Jane Adventures line is sadly done now. We're never going to see that again, unfortunately. It's possible that we may get some re-releases, but I don't think we're going to see the line being picked up again. So I think the idea of seeing a Sarah Jane Adventures Brigadier is definitely out the window. Then we have the Web of Fear version. Again, there's been a lot done to this figure. A lot's been changed, a lot's been updated. I've changed a lot of bits, I've added a lot of bits, I've taken away bits and re-sculpted bits, and for that reason I think it's very unlikely that we'd see character options put in the work that would need to be done to see that. The Battlefield Brigadier, now as I said in the video for this, it's possible that we could see this, because I think if we saw this, what we would end up seeing is just the normal Demons version of the Brigadier with a slightly with a repainted grey hair, and I think that's all we'd see. And I think it's possible that we will see it in future, but we will not see it being resculpted and made to look more accurate. They're simply not going to do that. I can't see them doing it. So I think that one's unlikely, but could happen inaccurately. The Spearhead from Space One, as I said, that's out because that's already happened. We could see a more accurate version, but I think it is extremely unlikely. The Day of the Daleks version, this version, I think is definitely the most likely to see in future, because when you break it down and you look at what else other figures we've got, I think if we saw this, he wouldn't have ungloved hands. He would definitely have the normal gloved hands, because that's how they would make it. But all they would need to do for this is to resculpt a new head. And as I said in the Spearhead from Space One, I think I said this in the Spearhead from Space One, I might have said it since or in another video. The Spearhead from Space official release did have an altered Brigadier head in order to fit in the Captain Jack body. Or at least that's what I've been told. As I don't have one, I can't verify this, but I have been told that, because it makes sense to me, because all of the Brigadier heads are made to fit on a peg rather than having a peg as part of the sculpt. So it would make sense to me, because the Captain Jack figures have a peg as part of the sculpt, and so unless they sculpted a brand new peg to fit inside the torso to put the Brigadier head on, it makes sense that the Brigadier head would have an added peg as part of its sculpt. So that kind of, if that's the case, then that shows that they're willing to sort of make adaptations to new sculpts and things like that. So I think the chances of us seeing this hatless version of the Brigadier is actually quite, well, I wouldn't say it's high, but I reckon if they're going to do another Brigadier version in future, I think that's, if they're willing to change a little bit of sculpting, if they're willing to update the head as they've done for another one, I think it's the most likely to see, because that is literally all that would need to be done. Obviously, as I said, it would be nice if we had ungloved hands, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But even with the gloved hands, if he had gloved hands and he just had a hatless head, I really do think that that is the one that we are most likely going to see in future, because it fits perfectly into what character options want to do with the B&M sets. They want to make new variants with spending as little as possible, and so if they just retooled the head, job done. You know, there you go. You've got a brand new variant of the Brigadier as we've seen him in future. And then I know they've said that people are always saying, you know, that they hope they're going to release Daleks, and I hope they're certainly going to release some Daleks in future, but I think it's unlikely, but it might happen, you never know. But if it does, then I mean, well, put it this way: there's 3 different variants. I could see that there's 3 different packs that you could include this Brigadier figure in for Day of the Daleks. You can have you could have the Day of the Daleks with this Brigadier, with a new variant of the Third Doctor and a new variant of Joe Grant, or a repack. I don't think we've had Joe in her Day of the Daleks outfit, so we could have that, or we could have a Brigadier, as we see him here, new version of the Third Doctor from Day of the Daleks, and a more accurate re-release of the Gold Dalek from Day of the Daleks as the custom version I've done. If we ended up getting Daleks in future, and I could certainly see that as being a popular pack on shelf. If you had a new Third Doctor on one side, this updated version of the Brigadier on one side, and you had a Gold Dalek in the middle, that would look fantastic as a pack, as a 3-pack in B&M. I certainly think that would be one that would definitely sell very well. So I think it's certainly possible that we could see that in future, because, as I said, it's the fact that there's so little that needs to be done to it as an updated figure, that I really do think that it could certainly work. But that brings to a close the end of 5 rounds rapid. It's been a great thing making all these figures. It's been fantastic for me making them. It's lovely to have these Brigadier variants in my collection, because I do love the Brigadier's character, but I didn't have any Brigadiers in my collection, so it's nice to have them in my collection, but also have some very special versions. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share. It really helps me out a lot. Be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation, and you can get involved. There is exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and funding my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.